What's going on, world? DS1 Ross. I'm back. Shout out to everybody. Welcome back to Sheep Stay Sleep TV. Hope everybody had a great day. Back here tonight with y'all family with the beginning of my Black History Month series for 2018. I did it last year. I felt like I had it was a success. I'm gonna just say it was a success. Um I had a lot of I got a lot of feedback from y'all. Um and I felt like, if y'all presented that series to y'all children, they would have learned a lot about people they didn't know. So this is something I'm gonna be doing for the next couple of years here on my channel. Started last year, 2017, so I'm definitely gonna continue with this year. 10 Black historians, that's pretty much unknown to a lot of our children, and it's recent history. It's not that long ago. It's recent history. So tonight we're gonna start off the Black History Month series of 2018 with Jack Johnson, the first African American heavyweight champion of the world in the boxing world. And what we're gonna do tonight, family, is I'm gonna give y'all some history of Jack Johnson, and then we're gonna watch this quick documentary on Jack Johnson. It's about 55 minutes. So I'm gonna share that with the family, and I'm gonna definitely take some feedback from y'all, and and then after that we could chop it up a little more. But I'm gonna do things a little different tonight, and we're gonna watch something together, and we're gonna learn about Jack Johnson because I didn't find a lot of history on him, far as people talking about him, but I did find a documentary talking about Jack Johnson, and I feel like that's very important to us and our children because a lot of our children want to be athletes, um, boxing, football, baseball, basketball. So I feel like we should definitely know the history of these sports. And Jack Johnson was the first African American heavyweight champion. I feel like that's very important, and the brother should be celebrated. So he's going to kick off the Black History Month series. I appreciate everybody for coming in so far. Um, and y'all stay tuned, family. I appreciate y'all, man, for tuning in to Sheep Stay Sleep TV. I'm your host, DS1 Ross, of course. Shout out to the family. Shout out to all my supporters, and shout out to the Alliance, of course. So I'm gonna get into I'm gonna read some brief history about Jack Johnson. And this is from this is gonna be from Britannica.com. Let me share my screen so y'all can see exactly what I'm reading. So it says Jack Johnson, by name of Jack Arthur Johnson, born March 31st, 1878, in Galveston, Texas. He died June 10th, 1946, in Raleigh, North Carolina. First black boxer to win the heavyweight championship of the world. Johnson is considered by many boxing observers to be one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Johnson fought professionally from 1897 to 1928 and engaged in exhibition matches as late as 1945. He won the title by knocking out champion Tommy Burns in Sydney on December 26, 1908, and lost it on a knockout by Jesse Willard in 26 rounds in Havana on April 5th, 1915. Now, just think about that, y'all. This man went 26 rounds. 26 rounds. Here's a picture of Jack Johnson, too. But just think about that. 26 rounds, y'all. This man went 26 rounds. That brother was a machine. 26 rounds? Most fights nowadays probably last 26 seconds. They went 26 rounds. So I'm going to continue. Until his fight with Burns, racial discrimination had limited Johnson's opportunities and purses. So as y'all could see, there was a lot of prejudice and racism that he had to deal with. You know, that's why he wasn't getting the fights and the money he was supposed to get. When he became champion, a hue and cry for a great white hope produced numerous opponents. So, y'all remember that movie, The Great White Hype? They got it from this. At the height of his career, the outspoken Johnson was excoriated by the press for his flashy lifestyle and for having twice married white women. So, as y'all can see, they had a reason to hate this brother. Because not only was he the best, but he was very outspoken. He was flashy, you know? Maybe that's where Muhammad Ali got some of his flashy stuff from. And he also married white women. You know that was a no-no back then, you know? Look at the times we talking about. We talking about the early 1900s. So this man married two white women. So he dealt with a lot of shit. Whole lot. He further offended white supremacists in 1910 by knocking out former champion James J. Jeffries, who had been induced to come out of retirement as a great white hope. The Johnson-Jeffries bout was billed as the fight of the century, led to the nationwide celebrations by African Americans that were occasionally met by violence from whites, resulting in more than 20 deaths across the country. So when this man knocked out the Great White Hope, these racist white folks run around and just start killing black people. They just went around and start killing black people because their Great White Hope got his ass knocked out. Isn't that interesting? That's crazy, right? And notice, before I continue, notice they called them white supremacists. They didn't say white people. They said white supremacists. There's a difference between white supremacists and regular white people. And as y'all can see, Britannica.com, not only do they know the difference, but they let it be known. Pay attention to stuff like that, family. In connection with one of his marriages, Johnson was convicted in 1912 of violating the Mann Act by transporting his wife-to-be across state lines before their marriage. Now, just listen to that, y'all. Just listen to that. Don't that just sound like some BS? He violated the Mann Act by transporting his wife across state lines before they were married. So they arrested him for that. I think that was just some BS, and they just wanted a reason to incarcerate the man, to knock him down from his glory. And as y'all can see, they've done that to a lot of our great athletes. A lot of them. They just threw him in jail for some reason, just because that just sounds like some BS. He was sentenced to a year in prison and was released on bond pending appeal. Disguised as a member of a black baseball team, he fled to Canada. He then made his way to Europe and was a fugitive for 7 years. See? So this man basically took his freedom into his own hands because he knew that was some BS. He knew that, man. He defended the championship 3 times in Paris before agreeing to fight Willard in Cuba. Some observers thought that Johnson, mistakenly believing that the charge against him would be dropped if he yielded the championship to a white man, deliberately lost to Willard. So some people, what they're saying, family, is that they saying that Jack Johnson probably threw the fight because he looked at it as if he gave the belt up to a white man, that they wouldn't lock him up. So as y'all could see, white supremacy and racism was heavy. This man was running from it. And he even was willing to give up his belt. From 1897 to 1928, Johnson had 114 bouts, winning 80, 45 by knockouts. He was a monster. In 1920, Johnson surrendered to U.S. Marshals. He then served his sentence, fighting in several bouts within the federal prison at Leavenworth, Kansas. After his release, he fought occasionally and performed in vaudeville and carnival acts, appearing finally with a trained fleet act. He wrote 2 books of memoirs, Mes Combats in French in 1914, and Jack Johnson in the Ring and Out in 1927, which was reprinted in 1975. He died in an automobile accident. Isn't that interesting, family? An automobile accident. Hmm. Would you say conspiracy, family? In the years after Johnson's death, his reputation was gradually rehabilitated. His criminal record came to be regarded as more a product of racially motivated acts than as a reflection of actual wrongdoing. And members of the U.S. Congress have on a number of occasions attempted to secure a posthumous presidential pardon for Johnson. His life story was lightly fictionalized in the hit play The Great White Hope in 1967, which filmed in 1970. And he was the subject of Ken Burns' documentary film Unforgivable Blackness in 2004. Johnson was a member of the inaugural class of inductees into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. So as y'all could see, family, this man dealt with a lot just for being great at what he was and who he was. White supremacy was on his ass. So we can't say even today, because look at the heavyweight boxers of today who were great. Mike Tyson. who was wrongfully accused of things. They always take our great, even Floyd Mayweather. They always find a way to try to steal our people's glory. They always do that. That's just the way of the white supremacist system. So now, family, we're gonna check out this documentary. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. If y'all here, make sure y'all hit the like button. Hit the like button, family. Hit the like button. Now we're gonna go to this documentary and we're gonna learn more about who Jack Johnson was and why this brother needs to be talked about more. Thought I had it bookmarked. To Jack Johnson, boxer. Here we go. And before I start this, I want to let y'all know I'm using this fair use, fair use, fair use. This is for educational purposes only. Fair use. Fair use. Hold up real quick, family. Did y'all just hear what the man just said? His parents were slaves. Jack Johnson came from a family of slaves. So y'all can't hear it? I don't understand why y'all can't hear it. Hold on. Tell me if y'all can hear it. I don't understand why y'all can't hear it. I don't get it. That's confusing. I don't understand why y'all can't hear it. I got everything turned up. I don't understand why y'all can't hear it. Everything is turned up, y'all. I don't know why y'all can't hear it. All right, so y'all still can't hear nothing? Y'all still can't hear it? I'm about to see. That's crazy. I don't understand why y'all can't hear it. I don't understand. Well, I don't understand, family. I thought all I had to do was just share it and play it, and y'all should be able to hear it. I don't understand, why y'all can't hear it. That's interesting. I don't understand, family, but as y'all can see so far in the film, Jack Johnson, he came from a family of slaves, and he needed to go out and work for his family. He needed to help his family make a living. So I guess this is what got him into boxing. I'm gonna try one more time and tell me if y'all hear it or not. Okay. Well, since y'all can't hear it, I'm gonna just stop sharing it. This is interesting, man. I mean, wow. I definitely wanted y'all to, you know, watch this documentary. Sorry for the inconvenience, y'all. I'm gonna definitely try to get this thing right. But trying to play the videos and stuff like that. But let's see if we can find any more information on his brother Jack Johnson. Because I definitely was looking forward to playing this for y'all. You know, I'm upset. I'm kind of upset right now, but hey, we'll make do. So we'll just read up a little more on them, and then we can have maybe if somebody want to come on a panel and talk about what they know about Jack Johnson, or maybe some current heavyweight champions of the world, we could do that too. Well, it says Johnson was born the third child of nine and the first son of Henry and Tina Tiny Johnson, two former slaves who worked blue collar jobs as a janitor and a dishwasher to support their children and put them through school. His father, Henry, served as a civilian teamster of the Union's 38th Colored Infantry and was a role model for his son. As Jack once said, his father was the most perfect physical specimen that he had ever seen. Although his father was only 5 foot 5 inches and left with an atrophied right leg from his service in the war. Growing up in Galveston, Texas, Johnson attended 5 years of school and was known as a bright, talkative, and energetic kid. Like all of his siblings, Jack was expected to work to keep the family going. While he was growing up, he helped sweep classrooms to erase the work for his father, and he worked for the local milkman before school, taking care of the horses while the milkman got off to make deliveries. For this work, he was paid 10 cents and a red pair of socks, which his boss had a seemingly endless supply of. Every Saturday, although Jack grew up in the South, he said that segregation was not an issue in the somewhat secluded city of Galveston, as everyone living in Galveston's 12th Ward was poor and went through the same struggles. Johnson remembers growing up with a gang of white boys in which he never felt victimized or excluded. So he grew up around poor whites too. He grew up around poor whites. So this system that we like to talk about doesn't just affect us. It affects everyone who lives. Remembering his childhood, Johnson said, as I grew up, the white boys were my friends and my pals. I ate with them, played with them, and slept at their homes. Their mothers gave me cookies, and I ate at their tables. No one ever taught me that white men were superior to me. Jack carried this mentality into his boxing career, as he would not be intimidated to fight any man, no matter their race. See? So even though he grew up with slave parents, he wasn't taught to hate the white man. He wasn't taught that the white man was more superior than him. He wasn't taught that the white man was a devil. He wasn't taught none of that. He grew up with white boys. They were his friends. He spent the night at their house, everything. He grew up like a normal kid, you know? So he didn't grow up with those concepts in his mind. And that's very interesting to me because a lot of us who didn't grow up in this time have these thoughts in our minds about white people when some people who grew up in that time didn't even have those thoughts. So that's very interesting. During his days as a child, Johnson was a frail young boy and not much of a fighter, as he grew up under the protection of his two older sisters until he was 12 years old. Jack was usually able to avoid quarrels until he was 12 years old, and he was confronted by a boy who hit him on the jaw. About to run away from the quarrel, Johnson remembers Grandma Gilmore, or his mother, who told him, "Arthur, if you don't whip Willie, I shall whip you." Now, we all grew up hearing that. I know a lot of us, especially us African Americans, we grew up hearing that. If you don't go outside and whoop his ass, when you come in here, I'm gonna whoop your ass. That's something my parents said they parents used to tell them. So as you can see how this stuff is passed down. After winning the fight, Johnson developed a new mentality and toughness to carry with him through his life. After Johnson quit attending school, he began a job working at the local docks, soon discovering that he hated it. He made several attempts at working other jobs around town until one day he made his way to Dallas, finding work at the racetrack exercising horses. Jack stuck with this job until he would find a new apprenticeship for a carriage painter by the name of Walter Lewis. Lewis, who had a passion for boxing, enjoyed watching friends spar. And although boxing was somewhat new to Johnson, he began to learn how to hit hard and strong. Johnson later claimed that it was thanks to Lewis that he would become a boxer. After returning home for a short period of time, Johnson once again left at the age of 16, this time heading for Manhattan. While in Manhattan, Jack found living arrangements with Joe Walcott, a welterweight fighter from the West Indies. Once again, Johnson found work exercising horses for the local stable until he was fired for exhausting a horse, soon finding employment as a janitor for a gym owned by German-born heavyweight fighter Herman Bernot. Johnson eventually put away enough for 2 pairs of boxing gloves, sparring every chance he got. Throughout his time in Manhattan, living with Walcott and working for Bernot, Johnson began to develop his unique style of fighting, which would make him famous. Returning home from Manhattan, a much bigger and stronger man, Johnson quickly got a chance to test his new fighting skills in a quarrel against a man named Davy Pearson. Johnson remembers Pearson as much more grown and toughened man who accused Jack of turning him into the police over a game of craps. When both of them were released from jail, they met at the docks and were set to fight in the midst of a large crowd. After beating the much bigger, older man, Johnson began to think that he could make a career out of his skills as a fighter. So as y'all could see, I don't know if y'all making a connection, but as y'all can hear, back in those times, white people liked to see black people fight. They liked to watch that. That's how boxing came to its prominence. It started with them forming a circle and watching different people fight each other. Jackson soon Johnson soon got his chance fighting in a summer league against a man named John Must Have It Lee. Because prize fighting was illegal in Texas, the fight was broken up and moved to the beach where Johnson won his first fight and a prize of $1.50. God damn. Now you got boxers getting paid millions. Though this fight was just a small stepping stone in Johnson's career, he returned home confident in his career as a prize fighter and began his journey towards a historic career in the sport. Johnson made his debut as a professional fighter on November 1st, 1898 in Galveston, Texas, when he knocked out Charlie Brooks in the second round of a 15-round bout for what was billed as the Texas State middleweight title. In his third pro fight on May 8th, 1899, he battled Klondike John W. Haynes, an African American heavyweight known as the Black Hercules in Chicago. Klondike, who had declared himself the black heavyweight champ, won on a technical knockout in the fifth round of a scheduled six-rounder. The two fighters met again in 1900, with the first contest resulting in a draw as both fighters were on their feet at the end of 20 rounds. Johnson won the second fight by a TKO when Klondike refused to come out for the 14th round. Johnson did not claim Klondike's unrecognized title. On February 25th, 1901, Johnson fought Joe Konosky in Galveston. Konosky, a popular and experienced heavyweight, knocked out Johnson in the third round. Prize fighting was illegal in Texas at the time, and they were both arrested. Bail was set at $5,000, which neither could afford. The sheriff permitted both fighters to go home at night so long as they agreed to spar in the jail cell. Large crowds gathered to watch the sessions. After 23 days in jail, their bail was reduced to an affordable level, and a grand jury refused to indict either man. However, Johnson later stated that he learned his boxing skills during that jail time. Sound like somebody else. The two would remain friends. Johnson attests that his success in boxing came from the coaching he received from Charnowski. The agent Charnowski saw natural talent and determination in Johnson and taught him the nuances of defense, stating a man who can move like you should never have to take a punch. So, I don't know if y'all know, but Bernard Hopkins is another black man who learned most of his boxing skills in prison too. So it's interesting how a lot of these, African American champions, a lot of them have very similar stories. Throughout his career, Johnson built a unique fighting style of his own, which was not customary to boxing during this time. Though Jack would typically strike first, he would fight defensively, waiting for his opponents to tire out, while becoming more aggressive as the rounds went on. Sounds like Muhammad Ali. He often fought to punish his opponents through the rounds rather than knocking them out, and would continuously dodge their punches. He would then quickly strike back with a blow of his own. Jack often made his fights look effortless and as if he had much more to offer. But when pushed, he could also display some powerful moves and punches. There are films of his fights in which he can be seen holding up his opponent who otherwise might have fallen until he recovered. His style of playing with his opponents was very effective, but his style was also criticized by the press as being a cowardly fighting approach. In contrast, world heavyweight champion gentleman Jim Corbett had used many of the same techniques a decade earlier and was praised by the press as the cleverest man in boxing. You see? So they called the white man who did the same thing that Jack Johnson was doing, they called him a gentleman and called him clever, but they called the black man a coward for doing it. Interesting. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I appreciate y'all coming through tonight. Shout out to everybody. Johnson beat former black heavyweight champ Frank Childs on October 21st, 1902. Childs had twice won the black heavyweight title and continued to claim himself the true black champ, despite having lost his title in a bout with George Byers, and then after retaking the title from Byers, losing it again to Denver Ed Martin. He still made pretense to being the black champ and claimed the unrecognized black heavyweight title as well. Johnson won by TKO in the 12th round of the scheduled 20 rounder. When Child's seconds signaled he couldn't go on. He claimed he had a dislocated elbow. The defeat by Johnson forever ended Childs' pretensions to the black heavyweight crown. By 1903, though Johnson's official record showed him with 9 wins against 3 losses, 5 draws, and 2 no contests, he had won at least 50 fights against both white and black opponents. Johnson won his first title on February 3rd, 1903, beating Denver Ed Martin on points in a 20-rounder match for the World Colored Heavyweight Championship. Johnson held the title until it was vacated when he won the World Heavyweight title from Tommy Burns in Sydney, Australia on Boxing Day in 1908. His reign of 2,151 days was the 3rd longest in the 60-year-long history of the colored heavyweight title. Only Harry Wills at 3,103 days and Peter Jackson at 3,041 days held the title longer. A three-time colored heavyweight champion, Wills had held the title for a total of 3,351 days. Johnson defended the colored heavyweight title 17 times, which was second only to the 26 times Wills defended the title. While colored champ, he defeated ex-colored champs Denver Ed Martin and Frank Childs again and beat future colored heavyweight champs Sam McVeigh 3 times and Sam Longford once. He beat Longford on points in a 15-rounder and never gave him another shot at the title, either when he was the colored champ or the world heavyweight champ. So as y'all could see, this brother Jack Johnson was nothing to play with. He was nothing to play with, man. Johnson's efforts to win the world heavyweight title were thwarted as world heavyweight champion James J. Jeffries refused to face him then. Black boxers could meet white boxers in other competitions, but the World Heavyweight Championship was off limits to them. However, Johnson did fight former champion Bob Fitzsimmons in July 1907 and knocked him out in 2 rounds. There is a report that Johnson even fought and knocked out Jim Jeffries' brother Jack and taunted him about it to force a fight with no success. Johnson finally won the World Heavyweight title on December 26, 1908. A full 6 years after lightweight champion Joe Gans became the first African American boxing champion. Johnson's victory over reigning world champion Canadian Tommy Burns in Sydney, Australia, came after stalking Burns around the world for 2 years and taunting him in the press for a match. It is believed that Burns had agreed to fight Johnson only after promoters guaranteed him $30,000. The fight lasted 14 rounds before being stopped by the police in front of over 20,000 spectators. The title was awarded to Johnson on a referee's decision. So as y'all could see, he really only wanted to fight Jack Johnson. He wouldn't have fought him if he wouldn't have got that money he got paid. And I think he did that because he was afraid. Because as y'all could see, Jack Johnson was a knockout artist. That's what he did. He used to knock people asses out. So we're gonna get into a little bit of his personal life. Johnson was married 3 times. All of his wives were white. All of his wives were white. A fact that caused considerable controversy at times. At the height of his career, the outspoken Johnson was excoriated by the press for his flashy lifestyle and having married white women. In January 1911, Johnson married Etta Terry Duryea, a Brooklyn socialite and former wife of Clarence Duryea. She met Johnson at a car race in 1909. Their romantic involvement was very turbulent. Suffering from severe depression, she committed suicide in September 1912, shooting herself with a revolver. That's interesting too. That's interesting too. Very, very interesting to me. I wonder how that sounds to y'all, because that's very, very interesting. Peace to everybody in the chat. Peace to everybody in the chat. Thanks for tuning in. Black History Month series 2018. The first black historian is Jack Johnson. So shout out to y'all, family. I'm getting ready to finish up this reading, and then um I'll take some questions, and if not, we'll close out. Less than 3 months later, on December 4th, 1912, Johnson married Lucille Cameron. After Johnson married Cameron, two ministers in the South recommended that Johnson be lynched. Cameron divorced him in 1924 because of infidelity. So this man dealt with a lot because he was attracted to white women. All his wives were white. All of his wives, they were white women. And he dealt with a lot because he loved white women, and obviously white women loved him. So as y'all can see, throughout this man's whole life, he's dealt with a lot of adversity. Adversity was nothing new to this man, even starting from a child. So as y'all can see, you know, this man fought his whole life inside and out the ring. He fought. He fought just being himself. And this is what a lot of us, a lot of black men and women face. The next year, Johnson married Irene Pinnell. When asked by a reporter at Johnson's funeral what she had loved about him, she replied, "I loved him because of his courage. He faced the world unafraid. There wasn't anybody or anything he feared." You see? So the woman loved him because he was he was a man's man. He wasn't afraid. He never backed down from anything. And she loved him for that. She revered him for that, because he had courage, because she knew that him being a black man in these times were very, very hard. And he went through a lot of trauma. So she respected the man's courage and his bravery. Johnson had no children. And to me, that was the messed up part about it. The man had no children. So after he died, he had nobody to carry on his legacy. And, being that he married a lot of white women and he knocked out a lot of these quote unquote great white hopes, I feel like the boxing world kind of swept him under the rug, and they didn't hold him up as they should have. They should have held him up in a lot of ways, much more than a lot of these other boxers that they revere. And I'm going to just leave y'all with one of his quotes, one of Jack Johnson's quotes. He says, "I am Jack Johnson, heavyweight champion of the world. I am black. They never let me forget it. I am black, all right. I'll never let them forget it." So this man took pride in who he was. No matter how much adversity he was faced with or anything, he was proud of who he was and he let the world know, So shout out to everybody. I appreciate y'all for coming through. Do y'all have any questions in the chat? Any questions in the chat? I'm gonna give some shout outs. Shout out to Black Beauty. Have fun, sis. Have fun. Shout out to Sheena. Shout out to Suge. Yeah, you know that you know they gonna come through, bro. You know. You know. You know they gonna come through, man. You know what they gonna do. Shout out to Reign Supreme. Shout out to Chef JT. Shout out to my sister Krista Taylor. Shout out to Jalen Reloaded. Shout out to Majestic. Shout out to K Brooks. Shout out to Soul Alchemy, my sister Akasha. Shout out to everybody for coming through. I appreciate it. I really, really do. Shout out to Jarvis Davis. Yeah, shout out to you, bro. Good looking for coming through, man. Um, I definitely had a his documentary for us to watch, but I don't understand, you know, why I wouldn't why y'all couldn't hear it. So I'm gonna definitely try to fix that for y'all because I got a few documentaries and I got a few people that I'm doing for this series, and I want y'all to hear them speaking. I don't want to just read about them. I want y'all to hear them. So I'm gonna definitely get that done. I don't know, bro. It didn't say if he started the left jab or not, but um whoever saw that movie, The Great White Hype, they definitely got that from Jack Johnson. That's who I think it was Damon Wayans. That's who played in that movie when he knocked out that white boy. But as y'all could see, the brother dealt with a lot of adversity, just like Mike Tyson, just like Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis. A lot of our black heavyweight champions of the world, they dealt with a lot of BS, man. They dealt with a lot of BS, you know? So shout out to y'all for coming through tonight, man. I appreciate it. This is my first entry to the Black History Month series. I'm gonna do 10 black historians. This is my first one. Jack Johnson, the first African American heavyweight champion of the world. And I appreciate y'all for tuning in tonight. Of course, I will be back tomorrow with number 2 and 3. I'm not gonna tell y'all who they is, so y'all just stay tuned in to Sheep Stay Sleep TV. I appreciate y'all. As always, shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to all the trolls too, of course. you know, if y'all in here, make sure y'all hit that like button. Like, share, subscribe. And y'all keep doing y'all thing, man, and being great. This is Black History Month. But, you know, of course, we should celebrate our people every day. But I do this series because a lot of our children, they only are taught during Black History Month the same people over and over. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and it's cool to know those people. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a lot more Black history that's not being talked about. There's a lot more Black historians that they were swept under the rug. They were looked over. So that's what my series is about. To uncover some of those people. So I'm your host, DS1 Ross, of course, representing Sheep Stay Sleep TV. Shout out to all my supporters as always. I appreciate the love and support. And shout out to the mods, of course. And I will be back tomorrow with the Black History Month series of 2018. You know, I'll be doing numbers 2 and 3 tomorrow. So we here, family. Thanks for tuning in. Y'all have a good night. Sheep Stay Sleep TV, DS1 Ross. Remember, we gotta heal before we build. Heal before we build. Because if we build before we heal, we'll just keep causing self-inflicted wounds, family. We'll keep destroying ourselves. So let's heal so we can progress and do what we gotta do for ourselves, man. DS1 Ross again, Sheep Stay Sleep TV, Black History Month, Series 2018. Y'all hashtag that. BHM Series 2018. Sleep Stay Sleep TV again. We out. Peace.